Oh gosh. Oh gosh. This video contains spoilers for a game that you can only play once, so you probably shouldn't watch this video if you haven't played it. Also, it contains spoilers for its DLC, Echoes of the Eye. What does home mean in Echoes of the Eye? Outer Wilds, the base game, didn't focus much on this idea of home or missing home. In fact, it felt like travel was more of a theme rather than home. The base game is really about leaving home, happily leaving home. It feels like a coming of age, an adventure, a camping trip. The Hearthians don't concern themselves much with permanence. They are rambunctious experimenters. The Nomai are similarly distant to home. The name Nomai literally comes from their nomadic way of life. We don't even have a name or a clue on what their home star system is or what it looks like. Despite their constant traveling, they at least used to have a ship to call home, but even then, most of the writing we see is from after this time period. Ultimately, the Nomai and Hearthians' relationship to home aren't fleshed out, and that's okay. On the other hand, home in Echoes of the Eye is extremely important. This plot point basically provides half the motivation for the inhabitants' actions, and so I think it's worth a proper analysis. Let's begin with the main four reels. Part 1, Inhabitants. Reel 1, the First Seekers. The first slide reel has some of the most special reveals in the entire game, but one thing I think people looking closely will realize is this place is beautiful. The moon is full of peaceful life. Flowers, trees, a nice stream, and of course, the awe-inspiring planet this moon orbits. This is already a juxtaposition from the base game, because while many locations in the game are beautiful and stunning, not one is this calming, unless you're Gabbro. A beautiful home is a better home. The reel depicts one of the inhabitants finding a signal from something older than the universe. So naturally they destroy everything and make a ship capable of interstellar travel. This slide specifically is evocative as hell. The dead fish, the stumps of trees, smoke covering the visibility of the planet. This is a sacrifice, as leaving home often is. I mean, while the inhabitants literally sacrifice the physical buildings and natural terrain of their home moon, for us humans, it's usually a little bit more complicated. To leave home means sacrificing relationships with friends and family. It means sacrificing comfort and that sense of understanding a place. It might even mean losing part of your culture or of who you are. I'm sure the inhabitants felt this way about leaving home too. So they take their ship to the Eye. The Stranger is the name of the ship they built, and there's a number of details on it that are important to our theme. First is the fact that the ship looks kinda, just a tiny bit like their home. These wooden buildings on stilts are almost an exact recreation, and I actually think it's safe to say that some buildings probably are exact recreations. As we do know, they do this in the future. During this trip, some of the inhabitants would die. The journey would have been a long one, and the inhabitants who died sacrificed everything for some unknown knowledge at the Eye of the Universe. The Stranger also consists of a few specific communities of inhabitants. We can see from the blue campfires that these communities only consisted of a dozen or so members. I'm just guessing here, but I think based off the Dream World and the Stranger, each community was also the same on the actual home moon of these dudes. I think there's a community consistency throughout their journey, which is kind of important. To me, this shows that the inhabitants weren't very isolated people. It's common to see Hearthians alone for extended periods, but it seems to me that the inhabitants relied a lot more on community. They even have better third places than real-life Americans. Free movie theaters and churches to a celestial body. I mean, I can't think of any better third places than those. Reel 2. The Premonition. This is the slide that changes the whole dynamic you have with the Eye of the Universe. What was only one brief text in the base game now turns into the entire question of the DLC. Is the Eye even a good thing? The inhabitants finally get to the Eye. They scan it, and they see that it is capable of destroying everything, including them. Notably, only after they observe it. Just before they stop watching the scan, there's some grass beginning to rise, and a stalk of a flower growing out of the skull of an inhabitant. The inhabitants don't really pay attention to that part, because they realize that interacting with this thing will cause everyone and everything they know to die. They have already sacrificed their moon, and perhaps dozens of their own people, and now they will lose it all if this eye triggers. So they burn their churches and construct a device to block the signal the eye produces. At some point in the future, they will burn slides acknowledging their sacrifice to get to the eye. They are ashamed of what they did to reach here. Sometimes you will sacrifice everything and it will mean nothing. During this time, a certain someone also scans the eye and reaches their own conclusions, but we will talk about them later. After this, they go to the Harthian star system and use the sun to collect power, but remain constantly in shadow. Reel 3, a dream of home. So now these inhabitants are in an extremely weird situation. They can't really go back home, and they need to stay close to the eye just to make sure that no one finds it. They also don't really like any of the crazy-ass planets we got here in the Harthian system. This whole situation has brought them further and further from serenity, peace, fishing, drinking, board games. They just want to go home. And so they bawl their eyes out. And honestly, that's pretty valid. Even this guy, with only one antler, bawls his eyes out. What comes next is not as valid. They use their memories to recreate their home in a simulation and enter a constant state of sleep so that they can pretend like they never left. This simulation is not only extremely tragic, it is also a delusion. For a time, it will bring them peace. But this recreation is no home. It is only a dream. Their motivation for creating a simulation is one that is understandable. They miss home. We can all relate to this. Looking at pictures and videos, listening to music you associate with people and places. I sometimes go into Google Street View and walk home from school. This doesn't have to be a bad thing. Reminiscing isn't going to kill you. Unfortunately, this normal emotion can get twisted. Eventually, the inhabitants realize they can die in the real world, but survive in the simulation. Death becomes avoidable, and the simulation becomes top priority. This is the best thing for them to discover. They could let go of reality and maybe even forget about it entirely. Delusion could become as real as possible. Of course, their fear of reality was only heightened when the prisoner went against everything the inhabitants were building. Reel 4. Sealed away. While at the eye constructing the signal blocking device, the prisoner must have braved it and looked at the vision themselves. They actually finished the vision and saw the beauty the eye had to offer. The universe was dying, and through their interaction with the eye, they could collapse the possibilities and new galaxies could be born. The universe was going through winter, and they could activate spring. They also went into the simulation, but unlike every other inhabitant, they had their house built out of the way, completely out of the way. Ultimately, the prisoner would risk everything to turn off the signal blocker. And, well, the inhabitants caught them, and we know what happens next. The prisoner was sealed away, slides were burned, knowledge became lost. Despite everything, the inhabitants had sacrificed almost everything to get to the eye, but the prisoner was the only one to actually sacrifice everything. This slide reel actually barely gives any context for why the prisoner did what they did, so we must analyze all the other things we know about the prisoner. First thing to note is that the prisoner is just like all the other inhabitants. This may sound stupid, but I actually think it's extremely relevant. They did not need to add the prisoner to the third slide reel. In fact, most people don't even notice this until they watch a lore video like I did. The fact that they did, though, adds so many layers to this character that has like only 5 lines of dialogue. The prisoner missed and loved their home so much. This isn't what made them different. And there's more evidence of this. In the Scarlet Cove, where we find the prisoner's home, we can see their telescope pointed at the ringed planet. This emboldens the actions the prisoner takes. It proves that the prisoner also sacrificed everything and yet came to very different conclusions than the other inhabitants. Based on what we know about the prisoner, it becomes clear that this is partially due to the prisoner's braveness. The prisoner has only one antler, which is a good way of distinguishing them, but it also shows a character trait. To lose an antler, something that probably has reverence within the inhabitants' culture, would require a dangerous situation. Of course, the inhabitants are terrified of danger, specifically due to their fear of death. This little element of design is so cool. I love how obvious it is that the prisoner just like loves exploring. They love knowledge. They got the telescope. They have the antler gone. They're a traveler. They're one of us. Obviously, they are still of their kind, but there is a fundamental difference in attitude. While the inhabitants are fearful of anything and everything, the prisoner is a little rambunctious. The prisoner has just a little bit of Hearthian in them. So, to summarize, the inhabitants sacrificed their home to do something great, and that sacrifice meant nothing. They left their comfort zone and were seemingly punished for it. They had constructed a phony version of home on their ship, and weren't even brave enough to finish the vision at the eye. They sacrificed too much. Their real home was not only lost to the distance of space, but they had actually destroyed it getting to the eye. They were not willing to accept the loss of their home, and so they created an even more phony version, and sleep became their only peace. The eye gave them two choices: either a home-shaped purgatory, or start something new. And they chose purgatory because it was what they were comfortable with. They sacrificed too little. They took a half measure. One of them knew the eye's potential, however, and they took matters into their own hands. But the importance of home was above question, and the prisoner would lose it all. Over 200,000 years would go by in the dream world, and the inhabitants are still doing what they've always done. Their consistency is weird in a universe of constant change, which we know Outer Wilds' universe is. They have descended into madness. If you look to the sky at any point in the DLC, you will see their delusion. Every star is still in the sky. Not a single supernova in sight. Not a day has passed. When fear has crept into reality itself, the impulse is to go to something familiar, even if it isn't helpful or doesn't exist anymore. The game you played, the people you knew, the places that no longer exist. The story of the DLC is one of fear. The base game focuses on curiosity, and the curiosity you have is mostly seamless, besides an anglerfish or two. In Echoes of the Eye, however, you have to conquer your own fear. You have to take action despite the dangers in the darkness. The reason home was so important for the inhabitants to recreate was because home is the most comfortable place, a place generally without fear. Their ship had become a place with fear. What if another tries to free the eye? What if we lose our physical bodies to time? Fear had crept into their home, into reality, so they made reality a distant memory. So Echoes of the Eye is about collapsing the possibilities of making a choice despite losing everything. Echoes of the Eye is focused with leaving your comfort zone, taking action, making a change. Echoes of the Eye is about exploring an unknown world where death is around every corner, and there is no longer any other choice. You either die forever, or you make a choice to give life to something else. Wait, this kind of sounds like the base game was about home the whole time. Of course, the base game is about home. While yes, you leave home within the first minutes of your adventure, you return to it every loop. Every loop, you are faced with the same choice of leaving home, and it's not really a hard choice, is it? Outer Wilds makes exploring easy. It makes death a temporary setback. But once you reach the Ash Twin Project and you know you have to turn off the loop to reach the eye, no one would blame you if you procrastinated a little bit. You could just die forever. You could do the same things as the inhabitants. You are now faced with the same challenge the prisoner was. Will you lose your home, your friends, the people and the places you love, to bring about a new story. Once you are at the eye, the whole game becomes about the choices you make. Who will you remember? Will you linger in this moment? Will you jump into the great unknown? The base game makes it somewhat easy to make choices. It's easy to say you'll collapse the possibilities, but in real life this is much harder. Echoes of the Eye corrects this with its fear-inducing stealth sequences. In the dark world you must find secrets in. Outer Wilds and Echoes of the Eye are teaching the same lesson, but with different settings. Each tells you a part of the story, what fear does and what curiosity can overcome. Part 2, My Dream of Home. Honestly, the rest of the video is mostly about me. So if you were just here for the Outer Wilds, you know, I understand. Now would be the time to leave. But ultimately, I wrote this to try and understand myself. I left Russia 4 years ago when the war began. I am an American citizen, unfortunately, which means I probably won't be going back to Russia anytime soon. And it's not like I would want to go back while Russia is actively invading Ukraine and breaking international law. I've lost comparatively very little when you look at what millions of Ukrainians have. But I've still lost a lot. And comparing suffering, it's not really what I'm here to do. My suffering is still real, despite, you know, it being much less than millions and millions of others. Now, what I'm actually trying to say is I've lost home. I don't remember what it's like to not miss a place. After the war, I moved to Bulgaria with my parents and my brother. One of my first memories in Bulgaria is being gifted a little red and white bracelet. Let me actually go grab that. We got it on now. Also, look at my shirt. Very cool. Shout out to Da Vinci. Pretty cool stuff. These bracelets are called Martinizzi. I mean, that's the plural version. I hope I didn't say that too badly. They're gifted on March 1st, which was coincidentally the day I arrived in Bulgaria for the first time. Little did I know this idea of spring would go on to kind of define my experience in Bulgaria. Bulgaria mostly felt like spring, like opportunity, and the beginning of something. I grew spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. My entire worldview felt like it shifted like 17 times. Art, reading, video games, people, places, you know, all of these things completely changed my life. They changed more than my life. They changed like me as a person. I loved my experience in Bulgaria, and I think the fact that it gave me time to make this channel was another really great blessing. Bulgaria could never be permanent though. With visa issues, I couldn't get a job. I was just kind of slowly burning through money, and I had to make the difficult choice to move back to America for the first time since I was 8. This kind of hurt the last months I was there, like hanging out with these people. It was weird knowing I was just not gonna be there. It sort of took the wind out of my sails, and I stopped reading and writing. That's why it's been over a year since I posted for all the new people. You know, it's been a year. I've now lived in America for a little less than a year. Kind of depends on when you define me moving. I feel like everything I grew and cared for has died. My reading habits, my writings and videos, my spiritual growth, gone. I came to America to build something new for me, to try and get some sense of stability. I needed some income and connections, and I honestly feel like I haven't really gotten either, at least not too much of either. I came here to do something great, and instead my sacrifice, leaving my parents and my friends, has meant nothing. I think it's also important to mention the fact that I am in small town Iowa. I have no real attachment here besides family. It's not a bad place for them. It's not a bad place for a lot of people. I don't hate Iowa, but I hate being in Iowa. I have some friends and family here, and I love them, but it's hard because it's the place itself that I can't get behind. This is their home. They grew up with, and they're a part of, and I don't feel like the right piece of the puzzle here. To me, living in a small town is also hard. It just doesn't feel like the type of places where I'd like to be. I feel culturally, intellectually, and politically estranged. And most of all, it just doesn't feel like home. So I know what some of y'all have been thinking. When is this guy going to define home? And to be honest, I've been avoiding it for a reason. I think definitions are inherently broken and they take away some of the beauty that language has. By this point in the video, you probably already kind of know what I mean by home. The only reason this is important to talk about is because of this one adage I've heard many people say: home is the people, not the place. I do think there's some truth to this. In fact, I think this is relevant to the inhabitants. The inhabitants have their core community, and this is seemingly very important for them. However, to me, home is more like space-time. It's people-place. Like, if I gathered everyone I knew in Russia and we all hung out in some American suburb, I'm sure it would feel nothing like home. Like, dismissing factors like us being older and not being in school or whatever, the place would just feel off. It would feel so jarringly different. I think the most important factor people bring to the table is the idea of safety, like I was saying, of being comfortable. Home is supposed to feel safe, and people bring you that. Iowa certainly has people that make me feel safe, and yet I don't feel at home. The place is what feels off. So I sit here day in and day out, dreaming of home. Sometimes it's Russia, sometimes it's Bulgaria. Where I'm at right now sort of feels like a purgatory, and my fear of something truly new has held me back. Part of what's holding me back is just the soul-crushing feeling of waking up every day and not feeling like you're at home, even in the place you sleep, eat, and scroll in. In the place that you create in. How, after feeling that super existential emotion, are you supposed to suck it up and make something new anyways? When I'm not dreaming of the past, I'm dreaming of the future. Basically, at home or at work, I will imagine what could be for hours at a time. I will imagine my life as a writer or a YouTuber or some creative thing, and I'll imagine working in coffee shops in LA and Prague and Copenhagen and just like working from wherever I want. I simply reflect on these things rather than doing anything tangible to achieve them or something like them. Kierkegaard talks about this in his book, The Present Age on the Death of Rebellion. With every means in its power, reflection prevents people from realizing that both the individual and the age are those imprisoned. Not imprisoned by tyrants or priests or nobles or the secret police, but by reflection itself. And it does so by maintaining the flattering and conceited notion that the possibility of reflection is far superior to a mere decision. I linger in the possibilities. I think about some grand future, and yet I don't read and I don't write. This past year, I spent more time thinking about making YouTube videos than actually making them. The complementary issue here is that it is so easy to not make a decision nowadays. Where before the internet, you might get bored, insanely bored, just doing nothing. I mean, I'm sure that's not what people did, but you know, that's what might have happened. Now I will never be bored again. It is so easy to just not be. I can literally just waste hours away on my phone. And I'm aware that this has been talked about to death, but I think it's worth mentioning here. Sleep, work, and scrolling has taken up so much of my time, but even though that's the case, I still do have enough time to create, to make something. Anything. This video has taken over a month. My actual initial goal was to release this on March 1st, because I think that would have been thematically cool. Obviously, it's April now when I'm recording this. Hopefully it's still April when you're watching this. This project could have been done faster, but at least I've done something. At least I've made a mere decision to work on this project. But this project could never be the only decision. There's an obvious solution to my problem, right? Just move. If Iowa isn't the right fit and I love to imagine myself in other places, then why not just move? Well, it's because it's terrifying. Moving to Iowa was easy. I have so much family here. I have a few guaranteed friends, and now I have a job as well. This is an easy life, and I could continue to live my life here for a long time. But as established, I don't want to do that. I am so utterly scared of something new that I haven't even decided what's next. I talk about leaving all the time, but I haven't actually made one step towards doing it. It is scary to potentially go somewhere different again, and especially after it hurt so much doing it last time. It is tempting to linger in this moment while every possibility still exists, but unless they are collapsed by an observer, they will never be more than possibilities. I've had this quote on my wall in front of my desk, it's right there, for the past few months, and kind of embodies the attitude I need to have in this difficult time. I've only seen half the vision. I need to be brave and look at the other half. See the beauty it could possess. Currently in real life, it is turning to spring. I am hopeful that this change in reality will affect me emotionally. The simple fact that I come home from work and the sun's still out is honestly really motivating sometimes. While writing this video, I have also become more motivated than ever to actually making a step towards the future, towards making an actual decision. I might be heading back to Europe, or maybe to a college somewhere here in the US. I've applied to a university. I actually did it. I actually did one mere decision. Kierkegaard would be so proud. No matter what, I will be doing something new. I'm excited and terrified. It might turn out to be completely different from what I expect, but that could be a good thing, you know, as the prisoner says at the Eye, how beautiful. It's different than I'd envisioned. Whatever happens next, I do not think it is to be feared. So, Echoes of the Eye is about home, and as someone who misses home, who dreams of home, I relate to the inhabitants. However, Echoes of the Eye is really about what happens to those who are brave enough to leave home. You might lose everything, but you will have done one step that could grow into a universe. Echoes of the Eye has given me so much to think about this last year, and it's helped me come to terms with leaving Russia initially, and now that I left Bulgaria, it's helping me with that as well. Healing takes a while, but it's good to feel better. Like, I truly haven't felt any better until I started writing this video. And also actually making a decision, you know, applying to the university, it did help, even though I might not get in. Obviously, I need to do a lot more. I need to apply to more places and look into more things, but I started. I love the message of this game, and it's making me excited about the future. I'm also starting to get back into the swing of things on this channel. I made a video. You may also notice that this is a collab with another version of me. I have made another channel, an Outer Wilds channel, because there's no special interests I've had like Outer Wilds, where I feel like such a need to talk about it on such a regular basis. I just decided, you know, screw it, we'll have, you know, some videos where it's both channels, and then there's gonna be some videos that are purely Outer Wilds, no just Connor involved. Also, you know, feel free to join the Patreon if you'd like. I'm sorry to the Patreons who were paying money to me while I was gone. That kind of sucks. I actually do feel bad about that. If this happens again, I will pause the Patreon donations or whatever. I will also be releasing an extra video for the Patreon folks. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers. I spilled on my shirt.